Thanks. I stacked the room. So I am not a native Tucsonan. I am the next best thing. I grew up here. And when my family moved here to Tucson from Guam, gateway to Micronesia, look it up, I had some fears about living in the desert. Mostly about rattlesnakes and pokey cactus and the heat. But we moved midsummer, and that's monsoons. And so I actually felt at home in the rain because Guam, you get torrential rains, typhoons. I remember my dad would have to put up aluminum siding over the windows of our house, and he had this teeny tiny Honda that he would have to park in between the walls of the house because he was afraid it was going to blow away. Guam gets 80 inches of rain a year. Tucson, 12. 12. No biggie, or so I thought. When I was in junior high, which is what they called middle school back in the dark ages when I went, I discovered that the rains, 12 inches of rain can be pretty serious. Serious enough to shut down Seacrest Junior High because the roads washed out and the buses couldn't get to school. So everyone came to my house and we played poker and bet with Oreos, and that is still the best way to enjoy a monsoon. Hunkered down inside with your best friends and some Oreos. But I grew up and became a newspaper reporter. And your job is to actually go out in all that nastiness because readers love weather stories. You do not get to hide indoors. You have to go out in that nastiness. And so sometimes you risk life, limb, or your brand new Honda Civic in pursuit of a weather story. So it was summer. I was the night cops reporter. It was already dark when the storm started, and it was pounding. It was pounding so loudly we had to shout at each other in the newsroom to be heard. Thunder crashed, lightning flashed, the computers flickered off and on, and the scanner said that emergency crews were responding to a swiftwater rescue far on the south side. I was up. I grabbed one of our 90s era 20-pound cell phones, as big as a brick, and headed out into the black wetness. My windshield wipers were flapping so hard I thought they might fly off the car. On my passenger side seat was my trusty city map. I had no idea where I was going. I could barely make out the street signs, but I kept driving. At one point I slowed down to see if I could figure out where I was, and I could feel my car floating. If I wasn't careful, I was going to need to be rescued. But luckily up ahead, I could see flashes of blue and red. It was like the Disney Electric Light Parade, so I knew I'd found it. So my reward for finding the scene was I got to sit in the back of the nice dry squad car, interviewing the poor guy who tried to cross the wash. We both lived to tell his story. But even that is not my most harrowing monsoon story. No, this one involves a minivan, 5 11-year-old boys, and a 37-mile round trip that ended in a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. You get the Gilligan's reference, right? Okay, we were almost castaways. Almost. I'm a mom. I drive carpool, and this is my story. They say it takes a village to raise a child. It's actually more accurate to say it takes a village to drive a child. Especially if your kid goes to a middle school that relies heavily on parent-driven transportation to sporting events. And this was usually my job, and that was fine. And on this particular September afternoon, I was supposed to drive 18.6 miles one way to Marana. It's supposed to take 38 minutes. Not bad. We have plenty of time to make that 4 p.m. flag football tip-off, or whatever it is. I don't know, I watched 3 years of flag football. I still don't get it. So I load the boys into the car. The music's blaring, the boys are blaring, the snack bag's flying, and we are off. And everything was good until about 15 minutes in, and some rain splattered on the windshield. "Is that rain?" came the shout from the back seat. "Oh, it's fine. We still have a long way to go. It's okay. It looks clear back there." No sooner had I shut my mouth than the skies opened and released the kind of torrential rain that sent Noah scrambling for the ark. It was bad, really, really bad. And then that very quintessential Tucson thing happened where the outer lanes turned into whitewater rapids. And so I maneuvered the minivan into the middle lane, and I'm just looking for a place to maybe pull off for a couple minutes just to let the worst of it pass. And there in the distance, a safe harbor in the storm, a Walgreens. Because it's Tucson, of course there's a Walgreens. This one was at the corner of annoyed and anxious. So I pull off, and my son, my youngest child, who is both a dork and a natural-born leader, slides open the minivan door and leads the charge, and all of his friends follow him, and they are splashing around in the Walgreens parking lot like it is a pool. And truthfully, it kind of was at that point. And I took my cell phone and I called the school. "Is there really still a game? It's pouring." And I was told, yes, there's still a game. Keep going, it's clear up there. And so we made like MapQuest said and proceeded to the route. I loaded them all back up into the car. Fun fact, a minivan full of drenched 11-year-old boys smells only slightly better than wet dog. I was just glad none of them shook. So now we had to get on the interstate, on I-10, and to tell you how bad this storm was, you know how people treat Speedway like the Autobahn? It was 35 miles an hour on I-10. The rain was blowing sideways, it was gray, it was dark, I was squinting because I could see there was something up ahead. It was a tree. We maneuvered around it, kept driving. An hour and a half later, we were so close to where we wanted to be, but there was yet one more obstacle. It was not a tree, a roundabout. What? Who do you think you are, Marana? You're not England. Why did you put a roundabout right there by the park in the library? I grew up here. I have no idea what to do with a roundabout. So I made like Clark Griswold in European Vacation and just went around and around and around until I could figure out what exit I wanted. And I got off and we're at the park and the boys, the engine's not even off. The boys fly out of the car and head to the field. But it's empty. No one's there. No one from our team's there. No one from the other team's there. What the heck? I hear a car behind me. It was our coach. "Yeah, game's canceled. Lightning spotted in the area." What? Now, normally I would be fine missing a flag football game, but I literally drove through hell and high water to get here. It took an hour and a half. Lightning strike, come on, what are the odds? And you know, the 8th graders, they're so much taller, they'd get hit first. Our little 6th graders would be fine. I knew that logic wouldn't fly though. So I texted the moms, I told them what was up, and then I reined the boys in. "Guys, I'm sorry, the game's canceled." They looked at each other, shrugged. Okay. It's like, aren't you disappointed? And my son looked at me. Mom, we got out of school an hour early. So I loaded them all back in, and we got ready for that long drive back to the east side. It still took an hour and a half, because this time we got to experience the joys of rush hour on the northwest side. But there was no rain, probably because Tucson had already hit its yearly average that day. And yeah, definitely 12 inches when it follows your minivan full of boys, that's a lot. Thank you.